Guys, hello and welcome to a special tutorial video about force feedback settings here on rFactor 2. Today we're gonna deal about the FFB settings regarding clipping and what I deem optimal for the sim to use. And for that we need to understand certain things about how the game is simulating the force feedback or how the game is calculating the force feedback. There are three factors that are looking important when talking about the rFactor 2 force feedback settings. The first, of course, being in the game. So the car specific FFB mold and the force feedback strength. But there is another thing that needs attention when we're talking about force feedback setting, which is your profiler. This is the SimuCube 1 profiler and my settings. And as you can see, we have 100% hero wall strength, and you might think, oh, this is perfect, like 100% FFB challenge. Not necessarily, and we're gonna talk about that right now. But before we are talking about that, guys, if you appreciate this video, if you appreciate these tutorials, please give us a like on the video, subscribe on the channel, ring the bell, and make this community grow and come back for more rFactor 2 tutorials. Right, so we get going with our little journey here. 100% force feedback, 100% car specific FFB mold, Porsche Cup car around Nürburgring, and I'm gonna switch into the usual position of the screen because you guys will see that this steering wheel is a handful to rotate, and we're just gonna do a couple of corners so that you guys get an idea what 100% FFB is on 18 Newton meter steering wheel. You hear the steering wheel rattling over these curbs. Of course, track limits. As a proper workout. Steering wheel very strong and need a lot of forces to rotate it in the way I want it. Don't spin. And now we're quickly just gonna finish one lap around here to get you a little bit of idea what we're talking about. And we're gonna have a little bit of a look into data and evidence. Oof. Yeah, and that was too much of a jolt. So now, as you can see, the steering wheel is completely dead. We had an overvoltage on the motor, so that is one thing why you should not race with 100% FFB. So we stopped the car, and as you can see, motor faults, under voltage, not over voltage. So what we need to do now is press the E-stop, and once it released again, game should actually be fine already again. So we're also gonna have a look into the data here a little bit. So I've already dived deep into my Motec settings here, opening Motec. What you can see is the FFB output. So you see that majority of the FFB output, according to this plotter, is at either a minus 100% or 100%, which means nothing else than left and right. As you can see, most of these graphs have been cut off at this red area, or this red line. And this is what is called clipping. So the steering wheel is not even able to produce any effects being simulated by rFactor 2 in this range. Everything that goes out beyond here, you won't feel a single difference, whether it's a bump, whether it's a curb, whether it's a spin. Whatever is causing this magnitude, no chance. You don't feel it. This is what you consider clipping. So now you might be like, okay, If it's that simple, we're just gonna put the overall strength to like 20%. Alright, let's give it a go. Onto the sim we jump. I fast forward that a little bit so you don't have to wait that long. And I'm not going to do the full lap again. So, and as you can see, we're not having that big of a hustle this time to drive the car around the circuit. All easy, no stress. There are hardly any effects going on the steering wheel at all, like, you know, I can just pull it around with 2 fingers. Even if the car would be snapping a bit, it's no big deal, you know? Like, you're going on the curb. Easy. What does that mean for our data? So we're taking the data, putting it in, and obviously compare that part to what we've seen before. And as we can see, you see those magnitudes all being more or less same. Yeah, they vary a bit well, in the number of times that they appear, but overall you can see very same selection, or very same I don't know the word right now, like, but it's very same. So that means, and we can quickly remove the white stuff, which was the old lap. Still got a lot of clipping, so turning down the overall strength hasn't been the thing to look at, despite we haven't felt anything at all really. So what we want to do, and this is also what you want to do, is you want to put up the overall strength back to 100%, period. Because you want your wheelbase to just be able to deliver as much as possible. So whatever the game is putting out or pushing towards a wheelbase on the output channel, you want to be able to display it in terms of force, in terms of effects, in terms of resistance, in terms of inputs, and so on. So what you want to look at, and this is very important now, you need to see these two as a multiplier. Either you put down the car-specific FFB mold, which is even above 100, which is making the problem worse, of course, or below 100. For me personally, on this car, it's 30. You could either do this, or you do the opposite, because the car-specific FFB mold resets every time you jump into a new car or the car gets an update. You reduce the force feedback strength. Either or, the effect is the same. You can see those two being a multiplier with each other. So 1 times 0.3 is 30%, and 1 time 0.3 would be 30% as well. However, obviously you're making the FFB extremely weak if you put car-specific FFB mold to, let's say, 50, and force feedback strength to 30. That would give you 15% output overall, because 0.5 multiplied with 0.3 is 0.15. Regarding the minus here on the force feedback strength, depending on what kind of wheelbase you operate, the force feedback strength would need a positive value in order to pull towards the middle instead of pulling to the outside. But that, again, depends on the wheelbase you have and on the wheelbase settings and the wheelbase structure. I'll keep the force feedback strength now at 30%. Once again, I'm heading out of pit roads. We quickly speed this up again. So now you will already be able to see that the steering wheel is not quite as easy to handle. Especially these shocks as we drop down turn 1. They are pretty severe and they are pretty vocal. But overall, you feel a lot of things now. You feel rattling over the curbs, you feel the bumps on the track, like if the car goes jumping. You see that there was that little bit of weaving in the steering wheel. So there is a lot of feedback already. And we're gonna have a look into this little run in terms of the data again, in order to satisfy the scientific approach for the people. So we move up, grab the file, drop it into the Motec, and we compare old file versus new file. So here in the top area, 100% FFP challenge in white. In the lower part of the FFP output and the separation of and I would need to Google this word, the Häufigkeit for the Germans. So how often the bigger amplitude is happening, the labs that we just did. So the new data is white here. So that's sadly a bit contradicting, but white at the top old, white at the bottom new. As you can see, and it's not surprising that the blue part is sort of a carbon copy of the white stuff, just a lot less intensified and a lot less steep. So while we not always suffered from clipping in the white area, the blue area clearly is far, far away from it. And it becomes even more visible when you're taking away the white layer from the old file. So this is now a pretty decent force feedback setting. I could still probably go up to, let's say, 40% of FFB, but right now I'm able to determine whether we have in flat spots, whether we're going over steep curves, over flat curves, whether we are going over bumps, whatever the contact patch is doing, whatever the tire is doing on the ground, we are able to determine it clearly, as every of the effects I just mentioned have a very distinctive style, a very distinctive force feedback effect that we can feel and separate from each other. If I turn back on the white stuff, when we had the clipping, sorry, now it turns blue because I disabled the other one, but you still see how many of these effects are actually going down and are actually going beyond the limit of what our wheelbase is able to process. However, though, and remember in turn 1 where we have that little bit of a jump through the crest? You see here, we're talking about turn 1. Remember when the steering wheel was shaking a little bit? You see the effect on the steering wheel here, going a bit deeper to the left and a bit to the right, and then a bit less to the right. Really coming from this shock, from this jolt magnitude there, when dropping with the car through that whole section of turn 1. This is what we can feel here, but what we not would be able to feel on clipping. If we had the 100% and the clipping area there, we would get a shock, a bit of a shock, but we wouldn't feel clearly if the car is just hitting the ground or not hitting the ground, stuff like that. And with those force feedback settings that we're having right now, we can pretty decently do that. So what I propose to you guys, and this is very important, put this to 100%. You always want to have your wheelbase 100% able, accessing 100% of its performance. So whatever the game is displaying to it, it can be displayed to you in terms of force feedback effects, in terms of a reaction, in terms of motor strengths whatsoever. Because even if you put your in-game settings to like 40% in total, there might still be that one or other impact that goes over the 100%. So you want your wheelbase be ready to take those 100% at least. That's the first thing you want to do. Secondly, and we're going to switch back into the game, it's very important that for every car you find your desired force feedback strength. So for the Porsche, as we spoke about, I could go up to 40% of force feedback strength. You could also take 100% force feedback strength and 40% car specific multiplier. As the name says, it's a multiplier. So here you get 100% of 40, the other way around you get 40% of 100. So yeah, same. So you need to do that for every car. You should go into Motec, check your clipping. You could also be able to feel the clipping, the lower you go down, the more sensitive you get to what is the car doing. Is it the flat spot that I'm feeling in the steering wheel? Is it bumps that I'm feeling in the steering wheel, or is it the unevenness of the curbs? Stuff like that. So yeah, this is how you set up force feedback for rFactor 2. And if you guys have appreciated this, then please give this video a like, subscribe us on the YouTube channel, ring the bell for more rFactor 2 or more sim racing tutorials in the future, as we are also having a look on Le Mans Ultimate as soon as this is being released to the public, of course. But yeah, that is it for the force feedback settings. And now, guys, it's time for your opinions, your questions, your comments. Put them down in the comment area. We're gonna pick up on these and gonna get them answered. Guys, thanks for watching and enjoy rFactor 2 with great force feedback.